Hey, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And we're here in the jungle because coming up is episode number 4 of Guardians of Geek.
Survivorland.
We're going to be talking movies, we're going to be talking TV, and we're going to be talking a little Land of the Lost.
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
That is a deadly explosion.
That is the scariest thing every week. Why does it keep happening?
Imagine walking in the room and that explosion goes off every single time.
Well, that's what happens to us every week.
Well, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Guardians of Geek. Thanks for joining us for our 4th show.
We've made it 4. This is 4.
I cannot believe it's been 4 shows already. So, what's been going on with you? We've been about 2 weeks since the last podcast. What's been happening?
So much has been going down. Well, you know what? I've been in a bit of a nostalgic kick lately. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. I'm not sure what it is, but I've been feeling really nostalgic, and I brought out some of my my old Star Wars toys from when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Like the original Kenner
Like the original Kenner in the 1978, 77, 78. Well, 78. They didn't release anything in 77. 78 toys. And I thought this is fantastic until I saw the condition of some of them because it's been so long.
Right.
So the one that I sort of decided to focus on this time was my original Kenner 1978 X-Wing fighter. Which I still own. But it was in really rough shape. It was the decals were all peeling off. It was yellow. The sounds didn't work. The laser light didn't work. So I literally started researching online how to restore and rejuvenate this toy. So I spent an entire weekend taking the thing apart, cleaning it up, readjusting the motor inside, and now I've got it back to working condition. It's like in prime condition. You wouldn't even be able to tell it from its original state in 1978. It's so nice.
That is a good time right there.
It is a good time. That's how I spend my days.
Every time I had an X-Wing fighter as a kid, it was always the plastic, like the opening part, like where the person went in.
Yes, the canopy.
The canopy was always missing.
Gone.
Somewhere in this world, there's a ton of pens. Yeah. And a ton of Star Wars X-Wing canopies.
It's true. It's true. Mine's gone too, by the way. That's the piece that I'm still looking for.
I don't know why that always got lost. I think
know.
it's just because you're putting figures in it all the time, jamming them in there.
I guess so. And really, who cared about that when you were 7 years old? You just want to get things in there.
Those figures never look comfortable in there, by the way.
They really didn't.
It
was more of a reclining seat for them.
Than anything. That's hilarious.
It was like a Barca lounger.
Well, last week I was able to go to Smash Wrestling, which is a local wrestling circuit, which is out of Toronto, and John Morrison was there.
What?
Yeah, so John Morrison, if you don't know who that is, he was on Survivor on the very last season. New season starting in the next few days, probably. There's a season like every week, pretty much.
True.
But he was there, and so I was super excited because I used to watch him on WWE, and then he left for Creative Differences, and then he's been on the indie circuit. So I got to meet him, and so of course, what do? Ask him questions about Survivor when you're at a wrestling event. And I didn't have a whole lot of time with him. But he did say, because I don't know if you remember the episode where he got it was some
Voted
sort of
off?
it was like an idol play,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden he was gone. There was no indication at all during the show that he was even on the block.
Nope.
Well, it turned out that they didn't show that was because they never shot it. They
What?
the conversations when they happened were never on camera of them saying, if this happens, we'll put someone will write John's name down. So he said it was never on camera because he talked to Jeff Probst about it, and that's why. If you're been sitting and awake at night wondering why it was never shown, and that's why, because apparently they can't catch every moment.
Well, I feel like a camera person lost their job over that one. That was a big camera fail right there.
But it was I was excited because I knew who he was, and it's exciting to kind of watch his journey on there. But if I had more time, I would have grilled him with Survivor questions.
Exactly.
My goal is to get him on the show. That is my goal in life.
Okay, if he's listening right now, just put yourself down in your calendar.
Got to get John Morrison on the show. And it's like the wrestling stuff's interesting. interesting, obviously, but because it's his bread and butter. But it's Survivor is so interesting to me, and the fact that he was on it and everything is extremely interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the thing with Survivor is that you don't know, even though it's been on the air for what, 33 seasons or something like that?
36, I think it's up to almost now.
There isn't a lot of behind-the-scenes footage. Like, we don't get to see a lot of how they put this show together for some reason.
Yeah, I would love to see a show that's completely just how they put the show together.
Yeah.
And they've never done that, which really, really surprises me.
I mean, it's literally been like 18 years that the thing's been on TV. You'd think that they would have had a behind-the-scenes
I would totally
special.
watch that.
100%.
Jeff Probst, if you're listening, please put together a behind. It's more interesting almost in the show because
It is.
Because you ever see like when someone gets injured, there's suddenly like 1 million people there. Like it's like where are all these people? Like it's so interesting. I'd like to see from behind a couple players to see like the crew and things and see what's happening. But
just see how much the crew gets involved and how much they don't, and what people actually eat. Like, how do they really survive on this island? Because if I ate what they ate for 31 days, I guarantee you I would die. There's no way around it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But you know what is about survival?
What's that?
The news!
Really?
We have a minute and a half. It's my responsibility to tell the control room and New York that we won't be ready. We'll be ready. In 84 seconds, 15 seconds.
And now the news with Loop and Larry.
That was the worst transition in the world,
Yeah,
by
I
the
don't
way.
know where you were going with
I
that.
don't know. I just, I throw things out and see what happens, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
Well, the clip still played, so we're good. We're here. Now
we
we're
are
here.
now in the news.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Larry, take it away.
Oh, well, we'll start off with TV again this week. We don't have a huge amount of TV news, but some pretty big information has dropped down for us. We're starting with The Walking Dead. And Loop, you might want to jump in here.
Because I do watch the show still.
I
think you jumped out.
I jumped out years and years ago, but I know you're still a massive fan. And Michonne is leaving.
Yeah, that's pretty big because in the last last couple seasons at least, like Rick left, which is like he was kind of the main focus of the show.
Yes.
And then his son was killed, and Maggie left.
Wait, the son was killed?
What? You better get caught up. Basically, almost everybody you know has pretty much been killed at some point. But like Rick he's not dead, and Maggie is not dead because they've said that she's gone off the show. Right. I think they just like to leave the door open in case.
Yeah, sure.
And so Michonne leaving is pretty big, but I think they've built up enough characters now outside of like the main characters that like Daryl and that the show could keep going. So Daryl's been signed on for like 3 more seasons or something.
Oh yeah, there's no end in sight for this show.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting in that in real life half those people probably would die in a zombie apocalypse, right? But now the zombies are almost less of the threat. It's more the humans are the threat.
That's true.
And so it's kind of changed the dynamic. And now they've done a time jump too. So they're like 3 or 6 years later than since Rick had died. And so it's really interesting that way just to see what had happened in all that time period. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to hurt the show. She's been in movies. She was in Black Panther. I'm sure she has a better career outside of The Walking Dead.
Exactly. I feel like if you put any of the contestants who have appeared on Survivor into the Walking Dead world, they could last for decades.
Yes, probably.
No problem.
Nice way to bring it all back.
Thanks. So what else we have? Marvel is launching some animation.
Yeah,
what's up with that?
It's a thing called The Offenders, and it's the Tiger and Dazzler show, Howard the Duck, MODOK, and Hit Monkey.
Really?
4 different shows, and together they'll be The Offenders. It's kind of like a spin on the Defenders show that was on Netflix.
Right.
And Kevin Smith and Patton Oswalt are both attached to it. And I think they're going to be sort of Archer-like, what I mean? Sort of adult.
Yeah,
like kind of
a little darker,
a little bit more adult humor in it. So I don't know.
My question is, will Space Ghost be hosting?
It'll be very similar to that, probably. Like I don't know. It just 4 of them's a little much.
Yeah.
Like one series would like just to kind of test the waters, maybe. I don't know. It's Marvel. I'm sure it'll be fine.
And I feel like you got to ease into Howard the Duck. You don't want Howard the Duck just thrown at you like that. You just got to work your way up to Howard the Duck, right?
Well, he was in one of the Avengers movies. Remember, he was captured or Thor or one of those ones.
And I think he was in a post-credit scene.
And it's like, so I think that kind of got people interested in Howard the Duck. Now, if they go back and watch the George Lucas movie, they may not
They will lose interest entirely.
So anyways, they're using him in a way that he should be used, which is adult humor, which the comic sort of was in the beginning. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, exactly. It'll be a new...
I'll, of course, watch it.
Of course you will. You'll report back.
Yes.
And last bit of news news we have for this week from TV is we just found out that the Breaking Bad movie that we discussed previously on one of our other podcasts, they've now announced that it's going straight to Netflix.
Yeah.
It's going straight to Netflix and then AMC, which is exactly the opposite of what Breaking Bad did originally. It started on AMC, then moved to Netflix.
Right.
So this is going to be a Netflix movie starring Aaron Paul.
Yep.
As Jesse Pinkman. So it's a sequel. It is a sequel to the show. But yeah, it's going straight to Netflix. So it's not a big theater movie necessarily. Yeah.
And can I just say that you called that on the last podcast?
Yeah.
You did say that you were thinking it was going to be a Jesse Pinkman movie.
That's right.
You were right.
I totally
need some
nailed
sort
that.
of buzzer for that.
Yeah, what?
I don't know.
No, we need a better sound effect.
Yeah, well, that's just me doing it. I mean, it's just like...
That's true. That was good anyway. I feel pretty good about it. I feel like I'm in the know when it comes to Breaking Bad. I don't know why. I just feel like I am. So,
or you made a good guess.
Yeah, it was just a theory I tossed out there, and that one happened to stick.
That's the thing with our theories. They're either going to be right or they're not even close.
No. Majority of the time, they're not even close. So we just lucked out this time. Good for us. Yay!
Yay, us!
So that's what we got for TV this week. Let's move on to movie news. We've got a ton of movie news. There's a lot of stuff going on in the movie world this week. So they have announced the next movie in the Aquaman franchise.
Which is now one movie.
Which is one movie currently. Yes, it's becoming a franchise, but not in the traditional way. They're not doing a direct sequel to Aquaman, Aquaman 2. They're making a spin-off movie called The Trench, or I don't know if it's called The Trench yet, but it's about the trench. So it's more of a horror tinged script. It's about these like sort of dark creatures that live in this deep trench in the ocean.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a completely different spin on Aquaman, but it's going to be interesting because it may or may not actually involve Aquaman.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where they take this after just one movie. You'd think that they'd want to establish that character a little bit and then spin off, but nope.
Yeah, because these are more just like kind of frightening creatures more than anything. Yeah, it's very odd. It's a very odd spin-off because normally it would spin off a character, but this time it's sort of like just a bunch of monsters. So it's more like a monster movie.
Well, and the story is actually from when DC relaunched their comic line a few years ago and called it the New 52 when they started all of their series over again at number 1. The Trench was part of that ongoing Aquaman series.
Oh, okay.
So they're pulling the storyline from the New 52. So they've got source material to work from. It's not brand new material. So, and I remember reading those books at the time when they came out and thinking, this is really cool. It's really dark. So I have I have high hopes for this spinoff. I think it's maybe a good move.
And if you're a fan of DC or Marvel, I am Marvel camp. You're more DC.
I'm more of a DC
camp.
camp.
That's
I
how
like
we sort
Marvel.
But we sort of like that's where we that's where we know.
That's right. Yeah. We feel comfortable in our own our own camps. We rarely cross over. Speaking of DC, let's talk a little bit more about DC.
All right.
And how the Batfleck is gone. Ben Affleck out. No more Batman for Ben. So the question is, who are they gonna get to replace him? What I've heard is that the next Batman adventure is going to be about a younger Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
So that's how they'll explain that Ben Affleck is no longer Batman, because they're going to go with a younger actor to portray it. So the only name that I've really heard floating around is Armie Hammer.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that, I don't know how much younger he is. I guess he's a bit younger.
Yeah.
But I like Armie Hammer. I think he could probably pull off an action franchise.
One person I thought that could possibly do it is Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead. Now that he's not playing Rick Grimes anymore, because he has that kind of grizzled sort of look in that. Like he could possibly pull that off. He's not younger though. Like if they're gonna go that way. But,
Now, if they were doing an older version of Batman, I think he would fit the bill there.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Maybe they should go with the Oscars and not have Batman at all.
I think that's probably their best bet. Just give it a break.
It needs a break. It definitely needs a break.
Stick to the comics for now. What else do we have? Oh, so here was an interesting one. We talk a lot about retro, and we like looking back at things. But sometimes when you hear of an event happening that's coming back into the limelight, you realize how old we really are.
Oh, God, yeah.
And in this case, it is the Karate Kid. They're bringing the Karate Kid back to theaters for a limited engagement March 31st and April 2nd. And they're doing this because it's the 35th anniversary of the Karate Kid. 35 years.
I feel every bone in my body like
I feel like I was 35 years old when I saw it the first time. Yeah, it just didn't even
back when I was
to
a
me.
man who would fight for your honor.
That's
back
right.
then.
Yeah, it just didn't even occur to me that it was that old, but 35 years. Yeah,
That's cool though. It opens up hopefully for some more like older movies. Like there's a lot of movies I'd probably go see again, like Gremlins
absolutely.
and things like back at the theater if they brought them back. Like it's fun because you remember them as a kid watching them, but it's a different perspective when you watch them in the theater. It's
That's
just
right.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and theater technology has gotten better too. So the picture will be bigger, the sound will be better.
Yeah.
It'll just be a really neat experience. So I'm kind of excited about that. That's a good one. What else we got? Oh, this was also a trailer aplenty.
Oh man, there are trailers everywhere.
Every other day there's a new one, coming down the pipe. So what do we've got right now? We've got the Child's Play trailer, the Pet Sematary trailer, the Avengers Superbowl trailer. What else do we have? And just today, the Frozen 2 trailer.
Oh man,
broke the internet.
Yes.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So we got Child's Play. Hey, what do you think here?
I like the look of it. Like it has a cool It's not cheesy looking, but it has kind of a cool look to it. I like the sort of retro-y sort of look they did with it. It's pretty. It looks like it could be pretty good.
I think it's good. What I've read about this one is that they're changing the whole mythology of Chucky. So in the originals, Chucky was a serial killer who transferred his soul into the body of a doll,
right?
And then the soul lived on in Chucky. This time, they're using technology to bring life to Chucky, and apparently it's he's got a bad motivator. he's got it's like a microchip that was either programmed incorrectly or programmed, so it sends him on this kill crazy rampage.
Yeah.
So it's so it's not supernatural so much anymore as it is technology horror.
I think just the less of Chucky we see and the less of the one-liners, I think it could be a good movie.
I think so too. What else do we have? Oh, Pet Sematary. So Pet Sematary. Woo! I think this is going to be a creepy one.
Yeah, I'm not usually big on the remakes, especially if it's a classic movie, but I didn't find the first Pet Sematary that great.
Yeah.
So this one looks really good. And even John Lithgow, I didn't even know that was him. I'd watched it a few times, but because he's really underplaying how he usually is. He's very theater-ish, but it looks good.
I think it looks great. I think that they've sort of hit a benchmark with when they re-released It. Stephen King's It, and that one did so well that it's almost now they have to follow that sort of template for reintroducing classic horror movies and making them gritty and dark but more realistic.
Right.
And I think that's what this feels like to me. It feels like it's part of that same It universe.
Yeah.
Where it's real, but it's going to be viscerally scary.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
We didn't put this one down here. We haven't mentioned it. I'll add this in, but the Jordan Peele one.
Oh, yes. Us.
That looks really cool.
Holy cow. So I just read today that Jason Blum, who runs Blumhouse Pictures, and they're the ones who produced Get Out, and they're producing Us, has talked about the fact that he now wants to turn his movies, the Jordan Peele movies, the Jason Blum movies into a Blum universe. Like a Blumhouse universe.
Oh, cool.
So then they'd all somehow be connected. So I don't know if there's potential for Us to be connected to Get Out. I don't know, but that one looks terrifying.
Yeah, it looks really good. It looks really, really good.
I'm quite excited about that one.
What about the Avengers trailer? What did you think of that?
I think this is going to be the movie to end all movies this year.
Well, it is the end game.
It is. So. That's true. They've labeled it properly.
Well, I like how they had some people move on, but not us. I like that sort of concept of it.
Yeah.
What was the show that was on was it on Netflix or Movie Channel that had half the people disappeared? Remember, it was the In-Betweeners or something. It was
yes.
You know what I mean? Like that one. It's sort of that sort of vein where people just disappeared, and to them they only disappeared. We know how they did it, but
that's right.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be great, and they're really doing a good job of keeping the storyline sort of close to their chest. You know what I mean?
You don't know a whole lot.
No, you don't know a lot, but you know that they're going to fight harder than they've ever fought before. Like, I feel like this one is going to be so epic and so emotional.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get more emotion out of this movie than we've seen, because, I mean, Infinity Wars was pretty emotional too.
Yeah.
But I feel like this one, nobody's going to come out with a dry eye.
No, and Rocket Raccoon's there too, so you gotta love that.
That's always fun.
I forgot he was alive. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I forgot Rocket
That's
Raccoon.
right. So it's got everything going for it. I think that's going to be a great one. What else? The Aladdin trailer. We forgot to mention the Aladdin trailer.
This looks like one of the worst movies of all time. And maybe it's amazing. I don't know. I don't want to tear it down before it actually starts. But I don't know. I'm not buying it. Like it's just like the blue Will Smith. I don't know what it is. It's like funny as a cartoon character.
Yep.
I don't know how it's going to be as a human being. Now this movie could be great. Like I haven't seen it, so I can't really make a full judgment. Just based on what I've seen, I'm like, he looks better than I thought he was going to look.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know.
I know. I mean, this is like drawn the line for people. People are either for it or against it, and there's a lot of outrage about this thing. And a lot of people are saying, why didn't they just create a CG character? So it would look more sort of genie-like.
Like the Hulk or something, like in the Avengers. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, technically, I guess they still have time to make changes if they before this thing comes out. But yeah, there's a lot of outrage. I don't know how this is going to do in the box office because people are already with what, and it wasn't even I guess it was a full trailer, but it wasn't. They didn't show a lot of the genie.
But we saw enough.
We saw enough. Yeah. What else do we have? Oh, some interesting news from the Terminator world.
Yep.
The new Terminator movie. What is this? No, 6?
It'd be about the sixth, I think, maybe? In this series, yeah.
Crazy. So the new Terminator movie is coming out, and it is called Terminator Dark Fate.
Ooh.
It's pretty exciting.
Oh.
But the interesting thing about this one is that they're following in the line with a lot of other movies like Halloween, where they're ignoring a bunch of movies that have already come out and a bunch of storylines, and they're making this one a direct sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So technically this is now going to be Terminator 3. So it's got Schwarzenegger, it's got Linda Hamilton in it. And
who kissed us both on the lips, by the way.
She did.
Yeah.
Wasn't that something?
I know. It was a very weird experience.
It was really, it was awesome. We just went in for a handshake and we got the full makeout session.
Yeah, it was very, very odd.
Yep,
but she's like a wonderful person. If you ever meet Linda Hamilton, she's the best.
She really is. I mean, and it was a genuine, she was happy to see us, I guess.
And we weren't even like in a lineup at the con.
No, we were
like
at
in a restaurant. But you could tell we were like fanboying on her, right? We're trying not to, but it's hard. It's Linda Hamilton.
And she was awesome. So her.
I think that experience is what this movie's about.
Yes.
And then we go back in time. She gets the two of us specifically to go back in time.
Yes.
I've given away the story. I don't want to get too deep into this, but
although yours is just a theory, so it may or may not come true. But that is happening. James Cameron was the co-conceiver of the story, so he's not directing it. I don't know if he's producing it, but he had a hand
a producer on it.
Oh, he is. Okay, well there you go. So he's back in it too. So I guess now what they're doing with the other movies that already are out there, Terminator 3, 4, 5, and Genesis, and all of those, is that they're referring to those as being in an alternate universe.
Right.
So that's how they're going to brush them all away.
The problem with any sort of time travel, and I'm going to probably mention this a lot of times on the show, but it's annoying because it's like the X-Men series.
Yeah.
Because it's like the actors are changing, which is fine. I can accept that. But then none of the timelines really match up. So then you can say, oh, well, this created a new timeline and this created a new timeline. It's like
it's the easy way out.
It's like Back to the Future did it right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why can't everybody else?
Yeah. And they really can't. So, all they need to do with this one is just say it.
Yes.
It's just an alternate timeline. The end. So that's how they're going to explain away those movies. So the only other one we've got to talk about is Frozen 2, which just came out today, the day that we're recording this, just released the poster and the teaser trailer. And I mean, I know we've got a lot of big movies coming out this year. There's a new Star Wars, there's the Avengers, but Frozen, I feel like, is going to be mega hit.
Oh, it'll be huge. I mean, it's gigantic. The kids love it.
The kids love it.
My problem is, as a 40-plus-something person, I've never seen the first Frozen.
What?
And, why would I watch it? I'm not 8 years old.
I've watched it a lot of times.
That's what I figured. But I've never seen it. So, but I know, like, if through osmosis you see all the characters and everything.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on in this, and I'm like, why is like Elsa or whoever kicking the head off of a snowman, or was that a different character? I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what was going on, and it was like.
Well, and that was what was interesting about this trailer, is that it had nothing to do with the original movie, like nothing at all. Like
so I didn't know what was going on.
The characters were in it, but they were in a forest. There was a maple leaf. I was like, is there a Canadian connection? I don't know.
Was one of the characters like not in the first one? Because there was a character that was like when is it Olaf?
Yeah, that's the snowman.
Yeah, when he showed up, she's like, "Oh, what's this?" And she kicks his head, and I'm like, I thought she knew him. Like, I've never seen the movie, so I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. It's going to be a totally different take on it. It's intriguing. I'm sure that the fan base out there is going crazy trying to figure out what's happened to this world. Why is it all of a sudden fall? And why is she like racing through the water? And what's going on? Has she been exiled on an island? I don't know.
I've never seen the first one, like I said, but my biggest fear that it's going to turn into Cars 2.
No.
Like, remember Cars 2 suddenly had like weapons in there? Like, it's like, why would you need to put that into a kids movie? It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, they try to up the game and make them darker, and that's like
James Bond.
Remember what it is? It's a kids movie.
That's
like,
right.
it's not like we don't need it darker.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we want it fun and like. But I don't know. I kind of like giggled once in the trailer, and that worried me.
That was
like
that was enough giggling for you.
Well, I've watched other like Disney trailers and kind of giggled at a couple different parts in it. This one I was like, nothing. I don't know what's going on here.
So it's going to be interesting to watch how this one plays out. But it's happening anyway. So that's another monster tentpole blockbuster movie that's added to the 2019 roster.
All I know is I want to get as far away from it as possible.
Well, you know what we should do? Let's go over to the POP-Capacitor.
Let's jump in.
Right. Close the door. Where's that button?
This one? Okay.
88 miles per hour!
Run!
No, run! 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 Okay.
We got to make this easier and have it land right where we need it to.
I know. Why do we always park the thing 10 miles away from where
I don't like to park too close to things. I like to have a pull through.
Okay, fair enough.
So today on the POP-Capacitor, we are looking back, as we always do, at a movie, a TV show, a cartoon, a book, whatever it is. Today we're looking back at I'd say before, in the age of dinosaurs, before Jurassic Park.
Yep.
We had this show, and it's called Land of the Lost.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft and plunged them down.
This is very catchy.
1,000 feet below.
You ready? Here it is.
To the land of the lost.
It's like a remix. All right, Land of the Lost. This is a show that, as a kid, I loved Land of the Lost.
I think I watched every episode at least once, and then when it became a regular, like a repeat, I watched them again.
I love to. So it's Will, Holly, and Rick Marshall.
Yes.
But they call him Marshall in the song.
Yep.
Like,
Last name.
Just last name Holly. And they refer to him in the show a lot just as Marshall.
It's Marshall, which is odd because Will and Holly's last name is also Marshall. So why wouldn't they just be Marshall, and Marshall? That would have made more sense.
It would have made more sense. So this show is one of those shows. It was done by Sid and Marty Krofft, who also did HR Puffin stuff.
Yep.
And it was different than the other HR Puffin stuffs, which were like loud, elaborate costumes and looked like someone was on an acid trip when they made them. This one was a little more like specific of what they were doing, and a tiny bit dark at times too.
It was. It got,
for a kid show.
It did. It got quite dark. But yeah, this is the only one that sort of didn't rely as much on. Well, I mean, there were a lot of rubber suits, but but it wasn't as much sort of goofy as it was sort of survival based and, trying to, make sense of where they were and what had happened. And every single show, they're trying to not get eaten. And
how would John Morrison have done on the show? That's a question.
we're going to have to ask him
There's
this.
a lot of survival things going on in today's show.
This is the original Survivor right here.
But it was kind of weird because so we've got Will the brother,
yes,
whose shirt was done up and undone a lot. Like his shirt always started like at the belly button.
Yep.
But there were scenes if you watch it, like his shirt would be like 3 buttons down, and then literally turn around, it would be down to his belly button.
Exactly.
It was like his shirt was all over the board.
It really was, which was really odd because he was on this island only with his sister.
Yeah.
Like, why did he feel the need to be exposed he was?
But that sort of implies that it's super hot.
Oh,
right? But at the same time, no one else seemed to be that hot. Like Holly was in cords.
I know. Exactly. Yeah, no, that didn't make any sense. Yeah.
So then you had Holly, the younger sister, who I think wore the same clothes through the entire series. So as she got bigger, by season 3, she was a lot taller.
Yes.
The clothes still fit perfectly.
Yeah, they were great.
They had a tailor somewhere.
Never once had a rip or a frayed edge or anything. It was remarkable how well they took care of their stuff.
And then you had Rick Marshall, who was the dad, who I'm not really sure. He was apparently a ranger.
Yes.
But apparently...
But not like a Yogi Bear ranger.
No. He was like a
military ranger.
Like a military ranger.
I believe so, yeah.
But he seemed to know a lot more than we would think.
Yes.
Because he specifically at one point, Chukka, who was like
he was like an ape boy.
Yeah, like a
monkey boy.
Like an ape boy of some sort.
Yeah.
Breaks his leg,
yes.
I guess. But luckily Rick's there to give some advice.
I'm not really a doctor, so you'll just have to trust me.
It shouldn't hurt anymore. I had to set your leg so that it would heal clean. You were very lucky, Chukka. You only had a slight fracture.
Okay, first he says he's not a doctor. And then suddenly he knows what a fracture. Like I'm not a doctor either, but I wouldn't know if someone had a fracture or a broken leg.
And how would you know that it's a slight fracture without actually opening up the leg and looking at it? It just appears to me that your leg may be slightly bent. So it's not a full fracture; it's just a partial fracture. Yeah.
I could stop laughing at that part. But did he not remind you of Mike Brady from the?
He was exactly Mike Brady.
Yeah,
the same curly hair, the same. Oh yeah,
100% Mike Brady.
Yeah, he was.
Because he always had like a little tidbit or a little like piece of knowledge or
little
something.
Lesson to impart on the kids.
To learn like all the time.
Yes. He 100% did. Oh my gosh, he's so funny.
So in the show, if you've never seen it, they land in this time which they end up calling the Land of the Lost, and it's basically dinosaurs.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's not all it is.
Yeah.
But it's mostly dinosaurs. But we're not sure how they got there. They fell off of a waterfall, and
Yes.
at the bottom of the waterfall was this land. I'm not sure why nobody else in the world ever found this land. But
there's a couple funny parts in this part too, as well. Is that so? They have this whole opening where they're going down the raft and everything. So the first show opens up when they're already there, and they wake up in the raft. But if you watch HR Puff and stuff, they have a kind of elaborate opening as well. But there's an actual movie that was shot that they're using that footage from. This was just shot for this. Yeah. Never any other real they never went back to this footage at all or anything. But so. They're not the only ones there. There's also the slee-STAKs, which are probably the coolest creature ever created on TV.
I don't understand. I think the biggest failing of this whole show is that they didn't do a slee-STAK spinoff.
I love the slee-STAKs.
I would have landed the slee-STAKs. That would have been awesome.
They were like the coolest creature. As a kid, I thought they were like they were so cool.
They were really cool.
So they're like lizards, like walking lizards, essentially, like with great big
huge eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they made this really creepy hissing sound.
But they were they were aliens. Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So this is so much for the episodes not having a lot going on sometimes in them. But there was is it Enid or Eid or I can't remember. He's the only slee-STAK that can talk.
Oh, that can speak. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Enoch. He's the only one that can talk. So at one point in one of the episodes I watched, he actually explains that if you leave, let's say you left, someone of equal size and value has to come back into the land.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so this is the one episode where they kind of explain it. Huh. So it was implied that they did die and they've ended up in this world. But you could go back, but somean else have to come, which comes later in season 3.
That's right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So this is actually like an out-of-body experience.
Yes.
This is what happens when you die. You don't go to heaven or hell. You end up in the land of the lost.
And apparently that was in Arizona where they went. Yeah, that's what it says. That they were in Arizona when they...
There's always been suspect that's where purgatory was, is Arizona.
So anyways, the slee-staks were very, very cool. But the one thing I laughed at the slee-staks, just an observation.
Oh, yeah.
There was always only 3 of them. You ever notice that? Every
That's
scene,
right.
there was never, like, I don't know if they only had 3 slee-stak costumes and then the Enoch costume.
Yeah.
Because he was slightly colored differently. He was
reddish.
bright.
Yeah.
So there's every time the slee-staks would show up, there'd only ever be 3. And I watched a lot of episodes. I probably watched about 10 episodes. Always 3.
That's right.
Always
maybe
3.
there's a law of 3s. Maybe there could never be more than 3 slee-staks in the room at the same time, or something catastrophic will happen.
It's like a classic movie thing where you can use the slee-stak, then they bring them back again. It could be the same suits over and over again. But
exactly. And they could just like walk, one of them could like walk out of the frame and come back in a different door, and you think that there's another slee-stak entering, but really it's just the same dude
guy
just walking behind the camera
with their Nerf weapons.
Yeah. And did you also notice how like tall these guys were? The slee-staks, they were easily 6'5".
Yeah.
They were massive.
Yeah.
Like they had to get like a good number of really tall extras to play these guys, because they're really impressive. Like they're huge.
Yeah.
They were a really cool character. I quite like them.
Yeah, it was like, the show was just like, it had a bit of mythology in it. It had like a little, even as a kid, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, but the slee-staks, like, I think that was like the best part. If it was just the dinosaurs, I don't think it would have had it, but it had this extra element of these like aliens that are there and you don't know why.
Exactly.
There's different things.
And there were only like, just like there were 3 slee-staks, there were really only 3 dinosaurs.
Yeah, you're right.
There was Grumpy, which is a T-Rex.
Dopey.
There was Dopey, that was like a brontosaurus. And then there was, I can't remember what they called it, but it was like a pterodactyl.
Yeah, had a name. And then later there was a couple extras, Lulu.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was the 2-headed dinosaur. I don't recall there ever being a 2-headed dinosaur.
Oh,
but
I think there was one too that like spit fire too.
yes, yeah. Not sure where those ones came from.
Yeah, I don't know.
But then the interesting thing we'll just touch on real quick here is season 3. Rick Marshall, we'll call him Marshall, decided to exit the show. He wanted more money. He wanted out.
And they said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we don't need you anyway. So instead of writing some elaborate explanation as to why the lead character in this TV show is gone, they just decided to have him be sucked through a wormhole back into the real world. But in doing that, they changed the opening theme song of the show to explain the entire scenario before the show even started. So
yeah, if they had started it with the regular opener and then you watch it and you go, oh my God, he's been sucked into this world, and now his like, is it
his brother,
cousin Jim or whatever,
Uncle Jack.
Uncle Jack shows up. But check this out.
Will and Harvey Marshall, as the earth beneath him trembled, lost their father through the door of time.
Through the door of time.
Uncle Jack went searching and found the kids.
They also fell.
They're really stretching those lyrics on this.
But yeah, so that was the intro to episode 1 of season 3, and then
still going apparently.
it's still happening.
Yeah, things are still happening. There you go.
And then season 3 starts, and it's exactly the same scenes that you just saw in the opening montage.
Yeah.
It's the first. So you're like, what? Did I miss an episode?
This is what you call spoiler alert.
They spoiled the entire twist of the show in the opening credits of the show.
I'm like, what is going on? It was so weird.
It was terrible. And then literally within about 5 minutes of the show starting, they had completely forgotten that their father was now gone because Uncle Jack was there.
It was actually a little emotional when he first
Yeah.
left, and then Uncle Jack shows up.
And they're like, hey, who was the other guy who was here? I don't remember.
They've completely forgotten him.
Yeah.
At least he was like an engineer, like they said, like so that it made sense why he would be able to do things.
Yeah.
The only other thing in the show, which I mean, as a kid, I wouldn't have noticed it, but there was some emotional moments, but there was a lot, like especially in the first episode, no one seemed to really care that there was dinosaurs. Like it was like, oh, better get moving or else Grumpy's gonna get it. It's like, I don't think I'm gonna be naming a dinosaur Grumpy. It's like your dinner, right? Like it's like.
Well, the thing is, nobody had seen Jurassic Park by that point.
Yeah,
so nobody knew how terrifying dinosaurs really are. So they didn't even know that they should be running away at that point. They're just like naming them goofy things, and that'll keep them away.
And then there's Holly in the show. I want to mention this quickly. Is that she, of course, everybody had a crush on Holly probably at the time as a kid.
Everybody loved Holly.
And so, and in the show, she's like, she teaches Dopey like a brontosaurus how to she trains him essentially. So she's like, and then later on, she basically is like an ESL teacher because she teaches Chaka, who can't speak a word of English. Suddenly he's making complete sentences by the third season. Notice how I'm like,
oh, and one other thing, I don't know if you caught this or not. Sorry, there's so many plot holes. It's amazing. Uncle Jack, when he arrives, they were talking about, how did you find us and blah, blah, blah. He says at one point, I started searching for you the moment that you disappeared. I've been looking for about 6 months. So by season 3, only 6 months had passed. Yeah. And in that time, they taught Chaka how to speak. They taught a brontosaurus how to play fetch and how to get things. These are brilliant people. They should really be doing this
unless
stuff.
Time moves differently or something
Maybe.
I'm going to have to ask Enoch. Only he knows what has happened. But
he'll explain it to you.
So what do you think? Does this stand up the test of time?
I totally think it stands up. I was so intrigued that I could watch episode after episode. I still found it fun.
I mean, we're picking away at little things here, but I mean, which are just funny because we're adults watching it, right? But I thought it still stood up. I mean, it has to be the show with the greatest use of chroma key I've ever seen. But everything in the chroma key even was well done. I mean, it was stop motion, so it looked like kind of Sinbad-y, but it was very cool looking for the time period
for 1974.
I'm curious to see how I would love to find out how they shot the sets if they just moved trees around. I don't know how they did that, but it was well done. I thought it was.
I mean, considering they had to make a new show every week to go through this process in 1974, couldn't have been that easy.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Was it not the only Sid and Marty Krofft show that actually had more than a season?
It might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure because most of them were a solid season or whatever.
Lidsville, not very many. Not very many seasons. Sigmund and the Sea Monster, Dinah Girl, Electra Woman, and Dinah Girl. Wonder Bug. Remember Wonder Bug? Yep, not a long run for that.
None of them really did that well. So I say yes, it definitely stood the test of time. Again, I was watching it, and I was even watching it for the technical aspects of it, and I thought it was a great show.
It really
remains a great show, and the slee-STAK still the number one monster on any show for me. It was awesome. So thank you once again, Land of the Lost. If you have a chance to watch it, it's on YouTube. It's absolutely amazing. Well, it looks like we're at the end of a show.
Another one?
Another show is done.
What? That's it?
This has been great. I love this. I love looking back at these shows. I love talking about the geek news, but we got more coming up in a couple weeks, and we got some interviews that we're trying to line up as well.
Some big things coming down the pike for you.
Never say that again.
Okay.
So we're going to leave you with a little Land of the Lost. We'll see you next time.
When I look all around, I can't believe the things I found. Now I need to find my way. I'm lost, find me. Living in the land of the lost. Living in the land of the lost.